Q's is a otaku loser with a face uglier than a troll, living a miserable life until the most popular girl secretly begins to like him and wants to smash him. She gets to school one morning, and as she walks to her class, everyone, including the girls, blazes over her, excited that they can be side characters in the same anime with the hottest girl in anime history. On her way, a freaking idiot who has too much confidence in his ugly appearance approaches her and tells her that her aura is giving. He introduces himself as Ando, who has been dying to talk to her because her sister has said lots about her. He then invites her to have lunch with him later today, but Alia gives him straight up no, which drops his aura to 5,000. However, he comports himself and asks for her number instead, but she refuses, saying that even if she was left with only him on the planet, she still wouldn't date him, shattering his ego. As she leaves, she even tells him that the necklace he is wearing is not allowed in school, completely destroying him and leaving everyone shocked that she just turned down the most popular boy in the school. On getting to class, she sees Q sleeping on his desk and calls him, but when he doesn't answer because he is deep asleep, she gets pissed and aggressively wakes him up, accusing him of staying up watching late-night anime recaps on Aninder again. He agrees, and she calls him an idiot like you who would sacrifice his studies for plot-filled anime recaps. Q's tells her that Aninder released a new recap by 1 AM, so he had to stay up to watch because of how well the narrator roasts the MC, and afterward, he spent another 2 hours discussing the recap with his otaku friend. Hearing this, Alia calls him insane, but Q's replies that he loves this kind of insanity, prompting her to call him a fool. She then musters some gibberish in Putin's language, which when Q's asks what that was, she tells him it's nothing special. Following this, Q's realizes he didn't bring his chemistry workbook for the next class, so he asks to share with Alia, and as soon as the class begins, he starts to doze off. Alia suddenly pokes him, causing a reaction from him that attracts everyone's attention, and unfortunately for him, it happens just when the teacher asks a question. The teacher calls on him to give an answer, but Bro doesn't even know what the question was since his dumb was sleeping. Meanwhile, as he looks around like a confused idiot, Alia decides to come to his rescue by showing him the answer to the question. He immediately says it out, only to discover it's the wrong answer. Then Alia stands up to say the correct one, shocking him. He asks her why she told him the wrong answer, but she denies and says she was only showing him the question. Kizov gets pissed and wishes he could piss on her face, but she suddenly calls him cute in Russian, shocking him. He pretends not to understand and asks what she said, and she replies she was only calling him stupid. However, Kizu wonders what the heck is going on as Alia always fawns over him in Russian, thinking he doesn't understand the language. Meanwhile, Kizu used to have a Russian female friend when he was young who taught him how to speak Russian so he could understand her when she spoke. He soon brings out his phone and rejoices on seeing a female character she likes. Alia takes the phone from him to see what the heck he is looking at, and upon seeing the character and her silver hair, she gets jealous and returns the phone to him. However, she switches to Russian and calls him a cheater for not recognizing that she also has silver hair, surprising Q's, who clearly heard what she just said, but he pretends he didn't. Later during lunch, Q's gets talking with his two fellow fools who don't have the recommended face card qualities to bag any girl, even in an hentai world. They see Alia and two other friends and start talking about them. The ugliest among them feels bad that Q's is friends with the hottest girl in school, while he struggles to even get a chance with the ugliest girl. However, he tells Q's if he is to shoot his shot, he will go for Yuki. But the dude beside him tells him he will definitely miss because he's got no res. A few minutes later, Yuki notices Q's and comes to his table to ask to sit with him, along with Alia. Yuki gets talking with Q's, making Alia a bit jealous, so she asks if they are friends, and Yuki replies that they have known each other since when they were kids, surprising her. Q's asks Yuki if she is friends with Alia, and she replies that not yet, but she would love to be. Upon hearing this, Alia says that being friends with her won't be any fun for her. However, Yuki insists on being her friend. Meanwhile, they have forgotten that the two other bros are also on the table, so they stand up to leave because they can't stand being the ugliest creatures on the table. After eliminating the two shit-faced mofos, Yuki moves closer to Q's and asks for his response to her offer to him to join the student council. However, Q's tells her he isn't interested. Yuki persists by saying he is capable since he was once the vice president when they were in middle school. A while later, after Yuki separates from them, Alia tells Q's that she is surprised that he and Yuki, as she never expected that any girl would want to be a friend to a dude with a face that could turn Medusa to stone. He asks her what she would say about herself, who is also his friend then, making her speechless, and then she takes her leave. The next day, Kuz wakes up from a dream about his childhood friend who made him learn Russian, but sadly, his low storage memory can't process her name anymore. He gets to school early that morning, and he arranges the classroom before anyone else arrives. He feels proud for doing something remarkable in a while, and Alia soon arrives. As they talk, he notices a wet stain on her socks and wonders if this is jizz or something. But she replies that she is not like him who goons on his uniform like a loser. She then explains that one silly man in a truck splashed water on her body on her way to school. However, she adds that is not much of a problem since she has an extra pair of socks. She changes the subject and asks him if he really was in the student council when he was in middle school, and he tells her yes. So she tells him to take the offer to join the student council, but he repeats that he is not freaking interested. She doesn't push further but removes the stained socks, which immediately makes Kuz embarrassed when he sees her seductive thighs. She notices this, and in a bid to make him feel even more uncomfortable, she asks him to help her get the extra socks from her locker. After doing that, she suddenly requests that he wears it for him, shocking him. He initially rejects, but she whispers in Russian as she wants him to touch her in freaky ways so badly, surprising him, as he can't still understand why she is really feeling his aura and glazing over him like a creep. He asks her what she just said, and she lies that she called him a coward. Following this, he suddenly grabs her leg and attempts to wear the socks for her, embarrassing her. He starts to wear it, causing her to squirm like she is about to climax. He mistakenly touches her plot region, causing her to respond with a kick to his stupid face that knocks him to the ground. She leaves immediately, and on getting back to the class, Kuz chats with his sister, telling her he never realized that he loved thighs. Meanwhile, Elia is feeling terrible and bitching around like an average lady on her period. So Kuz runs after her to apologize for earlier, but she tells him she is not mad. She then tells him sorry for adding to his horrible face, and he replies that he is fine. However, she is still concerned about him and tries to care for him. The idiot tells her he should rather thank her for giving him an exclusive peek into her glory hole, and upon hearing this, she smacks his face to the ground again. She starts running off in embarrassment, and Kuz runs after her. He soon catches up with her and apologizes with a canned drink while on his knees. The following week, Kuz goes down to the student council in the storage, and upon arriving, he meets Yuki. As the two start to joke around, Yuki sees them and sarcastically comments about how well they get along. Kuz replies that this is not new, and she immediately apologizes for being the useless third wheel of their relationship. The girls need assistance organizing the storage room, so Kuz starts by bringing down some board games, prompting Yuki to boast about her last victory. Alia chides the flirtatious pair to get back to work, then switches to Russian, quietly wishing she could get some attention too. Kuz shivers at Alia's words, oblivious to her intent, as she subtly pleads for his company. Afterward, they head to the student council office where the president, Kenzaki, introduces himself, mentioning he has heard a lot about Kuz. Kuz sizes him up, and upon seeing his aura, he concludes it is no wonder he is the president. He immediately prepares to take his leave, but Kenzaki insists on treating him to dinner to show his appreciation for helping the girls. Kuz initially hesitates, but Yuki urges him to seize this opportunity since he is only going home to eat the thrash he calls food. Kenzaki is curious about Yuki's knowledge of Kuz's home life, but she simply explains that they have been around for a while. Kenzaki extends the dinner invitation to the girls, and they agree. At dinner, Kenzaki compliments the group on their efficiency, prompting Yuki to credit Kuz for their swift progress. Kenzaki then asks Kuz if he would like to join the student council, but Kuz declines without thinking, saying he'd rather play Fortnite than be in the student council. Kenzaki tries to persuade Kuz by mentioning that joining the student council would significantly boost his recommendation, but Kuz is more interested in a different kind of recommendation, a hardcore corn that he can jizz to tonight. Yuki joins in the pestering, prompting Kuz to ask why she even needs him when she's almost guaranteed to win. Kenzaki reveals that's not necessarily true, especially since Alia is planning to run as well. This surprises Kuz, and he looks at Alia to see if she would say otherwise, but Alia confirms that it's true. After dinner, Kenzaki suggests that Kuz walk Alia home while he escorts Yuki, so they split up. Alia is unusually distant towards Kuz, and when they reach her stop, she leaves without her usual affectionate remarks in Russian. When Q's gets home, he immediately senses someone else is there. Inside, he finds Yuki casually relaxing on the couch. He asks what she's doing there, but she ignores him, engrossed in her favorite manga, hoping there are uncensored scenes just like you cultured losers wish you could get on this channel. Q's calls her out on pretending they are childhood friends at school, when they are rather siblings, but Yuki argues that being siblings doesn't negate the fact that they are childhood friends. The next day, Q's wakes up and finds Yuki in a cogwheel position on top of him, ready to ride him like a stallion, but he tells her he's not interested, because the laws here are quite different from the ones in Alabama. Following this, they head for the mall together, and Yuki goes to the luxury section where she starts to check out clothes with prices higher than the money Q's has ever handled in his life as a brokey. As they shop, Q's mentions to Yuki that he's been seeing a silver figure at the edge of his vision, and asks her if she noticed too, but Yuki tells him she has noticed before his slow brain could even realize that someone was peeping on them. He wonders what he should do in this situation, but Alia doesn't give 2 cents about it and walks straight up to confront Alia about why she is being a hell of a right now. Trying to act nonchalant, Alia claims she only just noticed them, but everyone knows she is just capping. Yuki invites Alia to join them for lunch, but Q's tries to stop her. However, this only makes Alia get more curious, wondering why he doesn't want her to come along. Meanwhile, Yuki warns Alia about the spicy food they're headed for, suggesting she might not handle it well, but the stubborn goat insists on going with them. Once they arrive at the restaurant, Alia becomes startled when she sees that the shop looks like it is run by Lucifer, and she wonders why the heck does a restaurant look like hell. They soon head inside, and as they check the menu, Yuki details the fiery experience each dish promises, prompting Q's to order the mildest option for Alia, so she won't transit to nirvana over a dish. The girls decide to go with this choice, and as they await their meal, Alia remarks on Yuki's tomboyish appearance, leading Yuki to casually mention she was in bed with Q's that morning. This catches Q's off guard, causing him to spit out his drink. Alia is shocked and looks at Q's to hear the heck he has to say about it. Q's tells her it is not what she thinks and goes on to give a shady explanation that he just innocently found her on top of him on his bed. Finally, their order soon arrives, and upon seeing the meal, she becomes scared for her life, but she quickly maintains her aura so she won't appear like an asshole. She grabs the chopsticks and puts the first portion in her mouth, which short-circuits her brain immediately. Q's asks her if she is okay, but she says she is fine. She begins to cry, pleading for help in Russian, but each time Q's tries to assist, the idiot refuses his help. Suddenly, Yuki decides to be mischievous and offers her more spice to add to her food, since Alia is an idiot who would do anything to make people think she is chilled as hell, whereas she is cooked as hell. Q's realizes Yuki is doing this on purpose and tries to stop Alia from adding the spice, but she stubbornly adds it to her food anyway, and when she takes a bite, she screams out her mama. Later outside, Q's mentions that Yuki went off to buy something, leaving just the 2 of them, and since they are alone, he asks her if she would like to lick his cream, to which she agrees without any hesitation because she has always wanted to know how tasty it is. She takes the ice cream to cool off, and just as she calms down, Q's suddenly asks why she wants to be student council president. Alia replies that she doesn't need a reason to aim higher, and Q's inquires if she has a running mate. Alia says she doesn't need one and would probably ask a random stranger just because of the rules, but when she switches to Russian, she secretly wishes Q's would run with her. This reminds Q's of a time he saw a girl cry over losing an election, making him feel sympathetic. Alia asks if he has any plans afterward, and Q's replies that he doesn't and that Yuki won't be back for a while. Alia asks him to follow her while she goes shopping. Q's points out that it might imply a close relationship between them, but when he realizes that Alia doesn't have any friends due to her attitude, he decides to accompany her out of pity. They head to the store, and Alia wonders why Q's has suddenly become nice to her. She starts to get mad when she thinks it's because he expects her to lose the presidency. Frustrated, she heads to the changing stalls, intending to blow him out of the water with her fashion sense. However, before she starts changing, she reasons that an otaku has wild imaginations, so she tells him to move farther away to prevent from hearing her wear her clothes, as though that is supposed to get him freaky. Feeling relieved, she begins changing, thinking about giving the viewers of this recap some exclusive content, but sorry, we censored it. She soon changes into a cute outfit to show him, but then worries about what she'll do if he has no reaction. and she decides to bite off his little meat if he does. When she opens the curtain, Q's genuinely tells her she looks great, and even puts effort into his compliment, making her embarrassed because she didn't expect it. She quickly closes the curtain, feeling overwhelmed, while Q's is equally embarrassed, unsure if the crappy Riz lines he learned as a Discord mod actually worked or not. Alia wonders if he's used to giving compliments because of Yuki, so she decides to try a boyish outfit like Yuki's. Q's rizzes her again by telling her she looks like Livy Dunn, and he would love to be her baby Gronk. Following this, Alia tries on several outfits, each time hoping for more compliments from Q's, who is already exhausting all the Riz lines in his dumbskull. This time, she picks something a bit risky to tease Q's with some skin. However, when she opens the curtain, she finds Yuki standing there and Q's giving her a blank stare. Embarrassed, she shuts the curtains and switches to Russian, wishing she could disappear. Yuki wonders what she just said and asks Q's to translate it for her. Later on the train, Alia zones out, looking like a zombified goat, but she snaps out of it when Q's and Yuki say their goodbyes. After they leave, she begins freaking out about the skimpy skirt she wore earlier, but then it suddenly dawns on her that the two came off at the same station. Afterward, Kujo heads home where her sister Maria greets her. Noticing Kujo's unusually somber mood, Maria asks what's wrong and Kujo talks about Q's and his supposed childhood friend, making Maria happy that Kujo is starting to like someone unlike before when her heart was padded with vibranium. Kujo tries to brush it off, but Maria directly asks if she likes Q's. However, Kujo deflects, insisting they're just friends. Maria questions this, pointing out that Q's is an indifferent slacker, which Kujo typically dislikes. Kujo recounts how it all began 6 years ago in Russia during a class project where the winning group would receive a prize. Excited to contribute, Kujo went into town to interview someone for their subject study. However, upon returning to school, she realized her group didn't give a shit about the heck she was doing. Kujo tried to motivate them to win, but all her efforts were met with apathy since her group was full of a bunch of losers who just loved losing. She even wrote an extensive report for the project, but her group mates weren't buying that, so they dismissed her efforts and told her to go and hug an electric pole. A disagreement ensued, leaving Kujo to finish the project on her own. And when another group eventually won the prize, she was deeply disappointed by the loss. On her way home, Kujo found herself frustrated, realizing she couldn't expect others to share her level of drive and determination, so she resolved to do things by herself from that day onward. Years later, she transferred to a prestigious Japanese school, where she met Q's, the seemingly unmotivated guy who seemed to be tired of breathing and needed a break. After exchanging introductions, Kujo quickly noticed that Q's was a top-tier sleeper who thought the reason for his existence was to close his eyes for 10 hours a day. However, this didn't surprise Kujo because this was not the first time she was seeing someone so unmotivated with life and had nothing going for him. When the school festival approached, everyone was assigned different tasks, but Kujo took it upon herself to shoulder the workload alone. Some classmates urged her to chill, reminding her it was just a school festival, but Kujo told them she didn't take advice from losers determined to give it her all. Despite pricking her fingers repeatedly, she refused to stop until the job was done. Later after school that day, Q's unexpectedly showed up, aware that Kujo was pushing herself too hard. He advised her to go home, reassuring her that everyone would pitch in the next day, but Kujo stubbornly refused to leave. That's when Q's presented her with a permission slip from the Handicrafts Club, allowing them to stay late and help her with the work. Kujo was stunned, wondering how he managed to arrange it, so Q's explained his approach and pointed out that there was no need for her to do everything alone. This only irritated Kujo, who didn't understand why he thought taking the festival seriously was a problem. She then gave an unwarranted speech about not compromising on quality and insisted there was nothing wrong with working hard, especially since no one else seemed to care as much as she did. Q's reminded Kujo that the whole point of festival attractions was to work together, suggesting she should rather have blackmailed the others into putting in their best efforts. However, sensing he was about to get another personality lecture, he quickly apologized and acknowledged all the hard work she had put in. Finally, Kujo calmed down and agreed to head home, but couldn't help wondering what was going on with that dude. The next day, the boys stepped up their game, much to Kujo's surprise, and not only did they get everything done, but everyone, including Kujo, enjoyed the process. When the school festival finally kicked off, everything ran smoothly. Later at the after-party, Kujo found Q sitting alone and decided to join him. He asked her if she wasn't dancing because she had 2 left feet, and she told him not to even dare her, because her legs could do unimaginable things, including the kind of things you'd clear from your browser's history after watching. However, she refused to dance because all her admirers were a bunch of ugly dudes. Q's playfully called her response typical of the Ice Princess, but Kujo didn't seem cool with this and explained that the princess part suggested she was a spoiled, silver-haired snob. She added that even though she was born with above-average looks and talent, she had always worked hard and didn't want her efforts to be overshadowed by the favor of her birth. Q's got it and promised not to use the nickname, which pleasantly surprised her. She thanked him for helping her see the importance of enjoying the festival with everyone even though she had been a jerk, and apologized for the boring speech she had given earlier. Q's told her it was no big deal, as it wasn't the first time he had listened to speeches that worked better than sedatives. But Kujo insisted on repaying him in a more tangible way and told him to name anything he wanted, even to a taste of her cookie. Q's takes a moment to consider and then asks Kujo if she has a real nickname. When she tells him it's Alia, he asks if he can call her that. She playfully asks what's in it for him, and he jokingly replies that he'll earn bragging rights for being on a first-name basis with the class idol, and he thanks her for the privilege. Just then, some desperate idiots appear, asking Elia for a dance. The boys start simping like sissies, arguing over who should get the first dance. Overwhelmed by the situation, Kujo becomes visibly uncomfortable, and sensing her distress, Q steps in, takes her hand, and declares to the group that she's already taken. Kujo's heart skips a beat as she looks at Q's in surprise. He then challenges her to see how quickly she can learn the dance, and she eagerly accepts his offer. From that point on, Q's returned to his usual laid-back self, prompting Kujo to tease him mercilessly, but deep down, she's been rizzed up. Back to the present, Maria compliments their adorable story, but Kujo insists that it's not what it seems, as she has probably been friend-zoned or something. However, Maria, recognizing a classic friends-to-lovers situation, isn't convinced, especially since she has her own experience with a mysterious lover from her locket. Kujo reluctantly admits that Q's does come through when it matters, while Maria starts gushing about her beloved Soikum, much to Kujo's annoyance. The following day, Q steps in at the student council to cover for Yuki. Maria, excited to meet him, introduces herself as Kujo's older sister and the council secretary. Q's politely offers to help her with any errands, but Maria playfully tells him not to be so formal since he's a friend of Kujo. She grabs his hands, warmly expressing her pleasure in meeting him, but there's something oddly familiar about the interaction. When she asks for his first name and he tells her, Maria has a moment of realization. After hesitating, she apologizes for the brief pause and continues, saying it's nice to meet Kujo's friend. Switching to Russian, she tells him they should get going, but Q's asks what that meant, even though he is aware. Later, they head out to shop for office supplies. Maria gets distracted by a cute plushie and suggests buying one for each council member, but Q's points out that Kenzeki wouldn't appreciate such a gift being a Sigma. They decide to scrap the idea, but Maria insists on getting one for herself. Later on their way, Q's can't help but feel sympathy for Kujo, dealing with such an unpredictable sister. When they arrive at their next stop, he offers to carry the plushie, which Maria playfully names after Kujo, commenting that it suits him. At the tea shop, Maria busies herself with the store owner while Q stands by, realizing that Yuki would be better suited for this task, having been taught by their mother. This thought triggers a memory of when his father broke the news of their parents' divorce when he was a child. Q's chose to live with his dad, while Yuki stayed with their mom. Lost in thought, he snapped back to reality when Maria notices his pained expression. She then gives him a comforting hug and gently pats his hair, a gesture that feels strangely familiar and soothing to him, until she accidentally spills hot tea on him, abruptly ending the moment. Later on, Q's and Maria return to the student council room, where Kenzaki playfully reminds Maria not to forget her spooky demon plushie. After handing over the supplies they gathered, Kenzaki thanks Q's for keeping Maria from turning the office into something straight out of a horror movie. Taking the opportunity, Kenzaki asks Q's if he's given any more thought to joining the student council. Q's declines again and says he'd rather have his balls hit. However, he's still open to lending a hand when needed. Maria then suggests that he could just join on paper, leaving Q's curious about why they're so intent on having him officially join. Kenzaki, sensing his hesitation, questions why Q's is so resistant. hinting that there might be a deeper reason behind his refusal. He recalls how Q's was a standout as the vice president during middle school, but Q's brushes it off, saying he didn't have any real ambitions back then. To Q's surprise, Kanzaki admits that his motivation for becoming the student council president was to impress a level 10 Kiat baddie who was out of his league. Kanzaki then pulls out his throwback picture where he looked like he was always used for wiping bums. Q's asks if it is younger brother, as he wonders why he is that ugly. But Kanzaki reveals it's his picture from 2 years ago, shocking Q's, who remarks that he resembled Michelin, and Kanzaki laughs, admitting that he was not only overweight but also had an unmatched record of failure. Everything changed for him when he developed a crush for a 10 and decided to up his game to win her over. Kanzaki points out that even Maria joined the group because Chizaki asked her to, so Maria admits it's true and adds that it doesn't really matter why someone joins as long as they work for the benefit of the students. Kanzaki then reminds him that he and Yuki made a great team back in middle school, and there's nothing for Q's to be embarrassed about. This makes Q's reminisce about the good old days with his sister. Noticing this, Kanzaki reassures him that it's perfectly fine if he only wants to help someone else become president. Q says he'll think it over, so Kanzaki and Maria shift their focus elsewhere while Q contemplates whether he really wants to help someone become president. When he asks about Alia's whereabouts, Kanzaki mentions that she's busy mediating a dispute between the baseball and soccer teams. Apparently, both teams requested the use of the school field to prepare for upcoming events. The soccer team has qualified for regionals, while the baseball team is being scouted by professionals. Usually, Chizaki would handle such conflicts, but she's currently tied up with official duties, so he sent Alia. But she seems to be struggling with the situation. Upon hearing this, Kuz decides to check if the teams are actually fighting. Meanwhile, the baseball and soccer teams are in the middle of an intense stare-down, with Alia observing. The guys get into a heated argument about whose match is more important, but when Alia tries to join the discussion, the soccer team challenges her to come up with a solution. Alia suggests they use the Riverside Park for practice, but the soccer team tries to pass the idea to the baseball team, who refuse to compromise. Throughout this, the captains of both teams, along with the management team, remain oddly silent. As the argument escalates, Alia begins to realize she sucks at managing, which makes her wonder how the heck she wants to be the president then. The promise she made to herself years ago is starting to backfire, and her previous attitude toward others is now making her seem like a clown in a circus performance. Feeling overwhelmed, she starts to cry and switches to Russian to ask for help. At that moment, Q steps in, announcing that he's now responsible for Student Council General Affairs and is there to assist. Just a few moments earlier, Q had overheard the teams arguing while Alia tried to mediate. He knew Alia's approach wasn't going to work, but decided to let her learn from the experience. However, when he heard her plea for help in Russian, he couldn't ignore it. Both teams recognize Q's from his middle school days, so he proposes a compromise. The baseball team can use the Riverside Park since they have fewer members, and in return, the soccer team will send some players to help them out. The boys begin to voice their objections, and Alia tries to calm them down. However, Kuz remains focused on the management team. Suddenly, the head manager steps in and offers her team's assistance, causing the baseball guys to change their tune completely. With the dispute finally settled, Kuz wraps up the matter, suggesting they file official requests the next day, while Alia looks on in surprise. As they head back to the office, Kuz apologizes to Alia for stepping in and possibly making her look bad. Alia brushes it off, but asks him why he made that suggestion, almost as if he knew the soccer manager would volunteer. Kuz is caught off guard by her observation, but Alia points out that he was watching her closely the entire time. That's when Kuz reveals that the manager is actually dating the baseball team's captain, shocking her. The baseball captain remained silent throughout the meeting because he was torn between helping his girlfriend and keeping his priorities straight, but Kuz was confident the manager would jump at the opportunity, ensuring a happy ending for everyone involved. Later, they run into Kanzaki, who asks how things went. Alia credits Kuz for working his magic, and Kanzaki praises them, but Kuz quickly calls him out for orchestrating the whole situation. Kanzaki admits to it and then asks Kuz if he's finally made up his mind, to which Kuz finally says yes. Kanzaki then invites him to the office to get started. As Alia and Kuz head home, Kuz grumbles about being outsmarted by Kanzaki. Alia questions whether he's planning to join the student council just to compete with Yuki for the presidency. Q's turns the question back on her, asking if she'd step aside if he were to run. But Alia, determined as ever, declares that she won't back down, even if it means facing him in the election. Sensing her resolve, Q's offers to help her become the student council president, causing Alia to be taken aback. But Q's reassures her that he'll support her in every way, extending his hand as a gesture of solidarity. Alia wipes away a tear and takes his hand, sealing their partnership. However, she suddenly says something in Russian, which reminds him of once having a similar experience. He smiles at the familiarity until he realizes Alia is squeezing his hand a bit too hard. She accuses him of thinking about someone else, making Q's panic. She presses him about Yuki, and though Q's denies any such thoughts, Alia expresses her frustration with a well-placed hot friendly slap. As Q's lies on the ground, she offers her hand to help him up, and on the way back, Q's gives a 5-star review for the slap he had just received. It was quick and efficient in waking his numbskull, but Alia tells him his IQ must be at absolute 0. When they finally reach Alia's building, she inquires if he's lost sensation in his cheek, but Q's says he's fine. However, Alia, already looking for an opportunity, leans in and unexpectedly kisses his cheek, leaving him stunned. Alia, noticing his surprise, questions his reaction, while Q's is left wondering if that was a dream because that she can't be real. Alia leaves without giving the answers Kizu was hoping for, leaving him frustrated and wishing she had said what she meant in Russian. Unbeknownst to him, Alia had actually confessed her love in Russian earlier, and now she's completely freaking out. Despite her feelings, which she refuses to acknowledge, she's convinced that if she ever confessed, Q's would just laugh at her. As Alia wrestles with her conflicting emotions, she hears the door click shut. When she looks over, she finds Maria sitting nearby, clearly troubled by something. However, when Alia asks about it, Maria pulls out a plushie to distract her. As she gets up to leave, Maria casually mentions meeting Q's and seeing why Alia might be drawn to his charm. Alia, of course, denies it, but Maria advises her to make her move before someone else does, because if she snoozes, she loses. When Alia presses her for more details, Maria just walks away, leaving her with even more questions. As Q's heads home, he feels like a simp for what he said to Alia earlier, but he suddenly stops to think about Alia's confession, wondering if all her secret flirts in Russian have been genuine or she's just being goofy towards him. He continues walking and remembers when his parents used to quarrel. He concludes that love is a scam and is not what racking his brain over, even though it's small and empty. He soon gets home and walks in on Yuki in the bathroom. Yuki immediately pretends to be embarrassed even though she planned it, so he can see her work of art. Maybe he would decide to make a few strokes on it with his pencil and turn it into a masterpiece. Q's thinks she is just a kid and attempts to leave, but she holds him back and asks if he isn't curious about why she did this. She tells him that she recently realized even though they have lived together for years, there has never been a time he walked in on her when she was changing, which probably should happen to all brothers at least once in their lives. He tells her brain is fried from watching too many TikTok videos, but she replies that she also did this to make up for tricking him earlier. Dude still thinks his sister is crazy, and she pesters him to reveal if he checked her out earlier, but he tells her she is built like a surfboard, so there was nothing to check out even if he were too, crushing her self-esteem. Later, as he talks with her, he reveals that he is joining Alia in running for presidency of the student council, causing a jealous reaction from her. Yuki says it's because Alia's got big melons and asks him to come and squeeze hers, if that will make him like her more, but he tells her to shut her freaking mouth. She soon stands up to leave his room, and as she leaves, she tells him she is now rivals with Alia, and whenever he is tired and needs pillows to rest his head on, he can always come and place it on her heavenly pillows. The next day at school, Alia eagerly waits for Q's to arrive, but she snaps herself out of her fret when she realizes that she is already losing her guard. She reasons that his stupid ass is going to walk in with a sleepy face as always anyways. He soon arrives, and she begins to flip through her book, pretending to be reading. He greets her and takes his seat. He gets talking with another dude not worthy of recognition. However, she observes him and notices that he is not his usual slurpy sleepy self. He seems very much alive today, making her wonder if he won the lottery. She catches herself drooling over him again and quickly calls her brain back to order, assuming he didn't get enough sleep as always. Later during the class, she is surprised that he is not dozing off, as he normally does, and she wonders if he is upping his game because of her. not knowing that the dude doesn't even give a shit about her. While in the sports center, the idiot gets hit by a volleyball because he had already zoned out amid the game. He soon steps out of the gym, and while he sits alone, Alia comes to try some pickup lines she has seen on Reddit. She touches his head and her head together to find out if his body temperature is normal since his head was hit by a ball. While at this, Bro has a sneak peek to how big her gadonkadonks are, immediately embarrassing him because he has never seen them that huge before. Afterward, they head to the tap to get water, and Yuki comes to meet them. She starts caring overly for him, making the silver-haired jealous, so she quickly grabs him and claims they need to leave already. They leave immediately, and after walking a distance, she stops to ask him if he is fine. He tells her he is, but she replies that he has not been himself since morning, so she thought something is wrong with him in the head. He tells her he is fine and reveals that he just didn't get to eat breakfast, making Alia instantly realize that the idiot was awake in class today because he was too hungry to sleep. However, he tells her he slept well last night, making her angry because she couldn't sleep after feeling guilty for slapping him. The dweeb quotes the Bible for her, saying the Lord said whenever he is slapped on the right cheek, he should turn the left too. This makes her even more pissed, and she leaves, regretting that she fell in love with a fool. Afterward, they head to the student council room from class. They meet Kenzaki, and after a while, Maria and Yuki arrive one after the other for the student council meeting. As soon as the meeting begins, Q's introduces himself as the new member, who would be in charge of the student council general affairs. He then tells them he and Alia will be running mates for next year's student council presidential election. Kenzaki thanks him for choosing to be a part of the council, as his experience as a former vice president in middle school would be very useful. He further tells him to help the other team members learn the ropes, which makes Kuz ask if they are short-staffed or something to be depending on him that early. Meanwhile, Yuki interrupts and asks permission to visit the art club with Alia to discuss their upcoming exhibit. However, Kuz suspects that something is about to go down between those two as they head out. On her way, Alia thinks of voicing out about something on her mind, so she tells them to go to an empty class to discuss it. She announces that she will be running for the position of president, and Yuki replies that she is aware, because Kuz informed her yesterday, surprising her. Yuki asks if that's all she wants to say, and Alia replies that even though she is not sorry about her action, she just wants to give her the honor of telling her in person. Yuki replies that she is not taking it personally and wouldn't have stopped her anyway. However, she regrets that Kuz didn't choose her instead. Alia then attempts to ask her if she likes Kuz but stops. However, Yuki suddenly declares that she loves him more than anyone else in the globe, even more than her parents, who pay her tuition, leaving Alia's mouth open. Yuki redirects the question to her, but Alia is a coward and replies that Kuz is just her friend. However, Yuki ain't buying the he's just a friend bullshit and asks if she is in love with him. Alia gets very shy, but Yuki moves closer, insisting that she give an answer. She pushes her against the wall, and Alia finally reveals that she can't say if she loves him or not, but she won't let her have him because Kuz is hers. Yuki makes a mischievous smile and tells her she is glad she could get that much out of her today. She then heads out for the art club, leaving Alia wondering what the heck she said back then. Meanwhile, Kuz and Minaya work on some reports in the student council room. While he thinks of Minaya as efficient and smart, he looks back to see her antonym, the president's girlfriend, Chizaki, messy and absolutely stupid. However, Kenzaki doesn't want his girlfriend's dumbness exposed, so he finds a way to send her elsewhere before she disgraces herself and her entire generation. After she leaves, Kenzaki tries to speak well of his babe before Kuz, and Kuz plays along even though he knows Kenzaki is just yapping. His girlfriend is not any smarter than a koala. The two girls soon appear, and Alia immediately puts her seat beside Kuz, making him wonder what the heck is wrong with her. She claims it is considered bad luck if a girl sits at the corner of the table, but Kuzi still thinks she is too close. Meanwhile, he suddenly notices the two girls staring at each other with ominous intent and wonders what happened between them when they were out. However, he brushes it off and asks Maria if her sister's statement about sitting by table corners is true. Maria attests to this, saying that unmarried people who take the corner seat will remain virgins for life and never get married. She then asks Alia if she has seen a guy yet, but Alia pretends to be pissed and whispers in Russian that marriage is not in the cards yet. Kuz is surprised that the silly girl is still doing this before her sister, who obviously understands Russian. A few hours later, Kenzaki calls it a day and dismisses the first years, while the second years wait behind to meet the teachers. On their way home, Q's can't stop thinking that Yuki must have done something she shouldn't have. They soon reach a cafe, and Q's suggests they branch here so they can discuss the presidential election. Alia agrees to this, but immediately says that she was hoping it would be a date, surprising Q's. Inside the cafe, Alia orders a large portion of the parfait and justifies that she is worn out, so her brain needs a lot of sugar to resume functioning properly. He asks her what happened with Yuki, but she refuses to tell him and asks if he and Yuki are dating. He tells her no, but she doesn't believe him, and he goes on to tell her that Yuki is not his kind of girl because she is just a few inches away from being mistaken for a troll. He further says she is just messing with her and having fun seeing how she reacts. He immediately changes the subject of the discussion to the presidential election, bluntly stating that they currently don't have a chance against Yuki. Alia wonders why he said that, and he gives her a backstory of how 12 students were contesting for the president while in middle school, but 6 students dropped out at the student congress right before the election. Meanwhile, Alia is an idiot and doesn't know what a student congress is, so Kuz explains it's a student debate contest. Realizing that this is what she usually sees students doing in the auditorium, she becomes curious about why the 6 students dropped out. He explains some gibberish that even you wouldn't understand. He states that, normally, the candidates fight each other until there are only 3 candidates left, but the lack of numbers this year in the student council clearly shows that everyone's given up on beating Yuki. He rambles on with his lectures on politics and governance, but Alia is already bored as hell and starts scoping her parfait to distract herself from this parrot. In a bid to stop the whole boring crap, she offers him some parfait, but he refuses because he doesn't want her saliva in his mouth. However, she insists on putting her cream in his mouth until he eventually obliges and enjoys the taste of heaven. He suddenly sees a girl named Taniyama passing by and is surprised. Meanwhile, Alia asks him how they can beat Yuki in the election, and he replies that they need to run a campaign that appeals to students from a different angle, as facing her head-on wouldn't be the best strategy. She wonders how exactly they would do this, and he tells her how Kenzaki became the president by taking the students on his looks-maxing journey from looking like a land whale to being a mog. This suggests that Alia needs to give a backstory to show all the students how hardworking she is and all that. Following this, Kizu orders a bowl of chili, and as he prepares to eat, he tells her he is surprised she saw no big deal with indirectly kissing him earlier. However, she exclaims in Russian that he is the only one she would do that with, surprising him. She then asks him how she can garner support from the students as Kenzaki did, and Kizu tells her that their first chance is the first term's closing ceremony, during which she will make the student council address. She asks him what she should say in her speech, and he tells her to be herself and say whatever she wants as students are more likely to trust her that way. As they continue talking, he asks her if she wants to try his meal, but immediately remembers that she can't handle this level of heat. However, Alia, not wanting to reduce her aura before him, tells him to bring it on. He gives her a portion, and as soon as she takes a spoon, her brain switches off immediately from how spicy it is. Later on their way home, Alia asks Kuz what he thinks Yuki will do since he happens to be running alongside her, and Kuz tells her even though she is powerful enough to run alone, she will likely take someone in the student council as her partner. However, he adds that they will be in trouble if she brings out the likes of Taniyama. Alia wonders who that is, and he tells her that she took Yuki to the wire during the election they won. Meanwhile, shockingly in the student council meeting the next day, Yuki reveals Ayano as her running partner. The next day, as Kuz walks across the hallway, Ayano suddenly appears behind him and asks him to follow her. As Kuz follows behind her, he reasons that Ayano is like a ninja who never fails to amaze him. On getting outside, she thanks him for taking out time to talk to her, but Kuz tells her to cut the she is doing and go straight to why she called him out. She asks him if it is true that he is running for the presidential election along with Alia, and when he confirms it, she tells him the master is not pleased with the fact that he is standing in Yuki's way after despising their family. However, Kuz doesn't give a because the dude is an asshole who is trying to act like they are family after once telling him they are nothing other than strangers. He asks her if Cramps sent her to confirm whether it's true, but she tells him she is asking of her own accord because it's her job to assess all threats to her. She adds that she always trusted that he wouldn't do anything to cause Yuki grief, but it seems she was wrong. Kuz replies that he didn't do it to oppose Yuki deliberately, but was rather just an unfortunate event. Ayano then asks if running with Kujo is important, that he'd rather hurt Yuki to do it, and he replies absolutely. He further expresses that he promised Alia He would do everything in his power to make her president. But Ayano cuts in and asks if this is because he has any feelings for Alia. He replies no, saying that he is only doing this because he wants to, and then tells her to inform Gramps to stop being a sissy and come face him himself man to man. Finally, before Ayano takes her leave, she asks him if she can trust his love for Yuki remains the same, and he replies that Yuki remains the most important person to him in the world, and then begs Ayano to be there for her. Following this, Q's is in the class with his stupid friends who jizz to hot chicks in magazines because they are losers and can't rise girls. They start teasing him about Elia, but he tells them she is just like a sister to him. Elia overhears this and insults him in Russian before accusing him of bringing such a magazine to school even as a student council member, but he quickly tells her it belongs to his friend. Alia takes her seat and Q's stupid friends, who are not reading the room, continue their mindless chatter. They ask him if he has ever thought of dating Yuki. But not wanting to experience Alia's wrath in Russian, he replies that not even in his dreams. He then states that he wants a girlfriend who can also be his bestie and has a cute smile, giving Alia butterflies in her tummy. However, Q's friends start talking trash and indirectly shade Alia, but Q's quickly cautions them, saying they should try to make her feel good, even if they have to lie or something. But this worthless moron, called Takeshi, only makes things worse and gets Alia even more pissed. Meanwhile, Ayano meets Yuki to give her feedback on her brief meeting with Q's. Yuki realizes that Q's is not changing his mind about running with Alia, and Ayano tells her that Q's aggressiveness made her wet her pants. Yuki is surprised by this and asks her if this doesn't mean that she also likes Yuki. Ayano immediately dismisses that by saying that besides her respect for him, she doesn't have any romantic feelings toward him because she feels she is too ugly to have him, and she would rather be used as a rag to wipe his behind. Ayano then tells her that Q's also mentioned that she is still the most important person in the world to him. As she hears this, she melts on her feet and runs to the window before she drips from her floodgates. She starts talking, feeling very excited like a child about to see Santa Claus, and tells Ayano that she is thrilled to be facing off against the most clever person her family has ever produced, along with her formidable opponent, Alia. Afterward, the girls play card games together in the student council room while the boys watch them, analyzing how well they are playing. As they discuss the fact that Alia looks like she is about to cry while her sister, Benaya, looks so chilled, Ayano suddenly appears with a bottle of Chapman and starts serving everyone. She begins to yap about learning how to be a maid from her grandparents, but they tell her they never ordered a yappuccino. She stands beside Q's and silently stares into his soul, leaving him wondering why she is looking at him with those siren eyes that could make him pull off his pants. Kingzaki asks if not making a sound is required for an attendant, and she replies that her grandfather drilled it deep into her when she was much younger. A few minutes later, Kenzaki observes Yuki and Alia and fears they will get into a fight, but Q's comments that Alia seems to be enjoying herself, which surprises the other two because she looks like she is having a hard time releasing a poop. The Chapman soon gets exhausted, so Q's and Maria step out to get more. On their way, she thanks him for choosing to run with Alia, but he replies that he doesn't think it's something she should thank him for. However, Maria states that Alia has always been a miserable loner, with no one to lean on, and she is glad that he is there for her now. As they continue walking, he asks her if he is deliberately hiding her responsible side from Alia, and she tells him that she doesn't want to compete with her, because Alia is a real hard worker who is always going full throttle in everything she does. She then says she doesn't want her to feel isolated, so she acts like her big sis in every way possible. She adds that relationships between siblings are complicated because they are the closest people in the world, forcing them to compare and compete with each other. Q's agrees to this as he thinks about Yuki for a moment and how he always feels like a pile of around her. He then tells Maria that she is a great big sister, to which she agrees, but she tells him not to mention this to Alia. However, Q's replies that there is no point in him telling Alia, because she won't believe him until she sees the more mature and responsible side of her. Maria advises Q's not to hide his responsible side like herself, and he tells her he doesn't have a good reason for it, so he is just some selfish, ugly bastard looking out only for himself. As he says this, Maria suddenly rubs his head and tells him he will be fine, shocking him and leaving him wondering why it is so easy for her to break through her shell. Meanwhile, as Alia walks to class, Taniyama crosses her and tells her to come. On getting outside, Alia immediately realizes that she is the girl Q's was telling her about the other day. Taniyama suddenly asks her if it is true she is running with Q's for the presidential election, and Alia confirms it. Then she starts calling her names, accusing her of taking Q's away from Yuki. Q's notices them and quickly comes to intervene. He tells her he doesn't care the heck she has heard regarding this and explains that he chose to do it on his own accord. He demands an apology from her to Alia for talking brashly at her, but Taniyama turns to him and says he is the one at fault then. She instantly moves closer and challenges him to a student congress, shocking everyone. Alia tries to defend him by saying she will have to go through her first if she wants to take Q's down. But Taniyama shuts her up and says she has no business with an idiot like her. She ropes her in the challenge, too, and says girls with a low IQ, such as hers, shouldn't be running for presidential elections. The next day, Kanzaki reads out the topic of the debate to Q's and Alia, introducing teacher screenings for student council entry, and Q's feels that it is targeted toward him because he doesn't have much of a reputation among the teachers. Kanzaki asks if they are really going to do this since there is nothing in it for them, but Alia replies that beating her will help their candidacy gain more legitimacy. She also adds that Taniyama insulted them, and she wants to see her take back what she said and apologize. Following this, Alia and Q's start to prepare for the Congress. He suggests the lines of argument he thinks Taniyama would want to use, and they plan the best responses to give to counter her. After a while, Alia asks Q's if he and Taniyama are on bad terms, but he replies that he can think of anything as they used to have mutual respect in the past when they worked together. However, he adds that maybe Taniyama thinks he is involved in this to make a mess of things for fun. But Alia is not convinced and wonders why she has such a negative impression of him, and Q's replies that since he used to be Yuki's partner, it's not a surprise she thinks he's got some ulterior motives. This makes Alia reason that all this is happening because of her, and she tells him that she will make sure they win the debate tomorrow. The next day, while Alia and Q's prepare to enter the student congress hall, a creepy girl named Mayame, who happens to be Taniyama's partner in the debate, stops them and seeing her. Q's wonders if the idiot thinks they have a hangout to be dressed like this. However, she replies that she is doing nothing during the actual debate, but only came to chill. She introduces herself to Alia, and as Alia introduces herself too, she tells her it seems she and Taniyama will get along, surprising her. After she leaves, she expresses her surprise about the fact that she is Miyame's partner, and Q's replies that even though they are opposites, they have been best friends since childhood. He adds that Miyame is one of the most popular people in school and she's got mad connections, making Alia think that that's an advantage for the enemy. But Q's tells her it's not something she needs to worry about yet and should instead stay focused on Taniyama. Upon entering the hall, Alia begins to doubt if she can pull this off, and while she worries about it, Q suddenly calls her and tells her he heard that she is built like a surfboard, shocking her. She calls him a cultured loser for talking about her melon size in this kind of situation, but he tells her she can't do anything about it at the moment, and that if she is so angry, she should hug an electric pole. He asks her if this short diss has calmed her nerves, making her speechless. He then asks her who her opponent is, and she replies it's Taniyama, but Q's tells her she is wrong, stating that her opponent is the idealized, perfect version of yourself. He tells her she doesn't have to be perfect, and should do whatever she thinks is cool, adding that if it ever comes to worst, he will work things out from there. The Congress soon begins, and Taniyama comes forward to defend her case. She yaps that based on the statistics, the student council has been filled with numbskulls and unintelligent idiots because the council itself has been choosing who should be in office. She then proposes that having the teachers approve students before they are allowed to run for a position should be passed into the bill. She concludes her points and Alia comes up next, and thinking about Q's advice to her to do whatever she thinks is cool, she counters Taniyama's points by saying that having the teachers screen the students will weaken the authority of the president and his vice, as they would just become useless figureheads with no real power over the affairs of the students. As she continues talking, Q thinks she is doing a good job. Meanwhile, Taniyama stares at him as though she should unalive him, thinking he gave her all the points she is making. As soon as Alia finishes tendering her points, Taniyama stands up to say that the student council has accepted every volunteer of recent, both capable ones and even the fools that don't seem to know how to make intelligent decisions, so the teachers should instead be involved to prevent a downturn in performance. Alia defends that the president and vice president can always accept their shortcomings and call for the help of the teachers. However, Taniyama suddenly asks a question that puts Alia off balance, inquiring what if the president and vice president abuse their power. Alia becomes speechless and starts to glitch, wondering how she should respond, but Kuz tells her it's time to see a master at work. As he stands before everyone, he suddenly asks the audience what the point of the debate is. He begins to cook, stating how messed up Kenzaki used to be before he became president. How he completely changed himself from being the ugly, good-for-nothing dweeb with no bright future he used to be to the intelligent and competent president they now know him as. He adds that he was only able to become the president because the system allows anyone with the drive to become a student council officer. Upon hearing this, everyone goes silent, and Kenzaki, feeling like a stray bullet has just hit him, declares that since there are no questions, they will move to closing statements. Meanwhile, Taniyama immediately runs out of the hall, feeling embarrassed, and Alia quickly follows her so she won't go and dive into the ground from the rooftop. Miyama eventually accepts their defeat and apologizes for the mess her partner caused, after which Kenzaki ends the Congress. Outside, as Taniyama runs off in shame, Alia catches up and grabs her. Taniyama then begins to pour out her mind, asking Alia why Kuz decided to choose her instead of Yuki, with whom he shared a special bond. She adds that she accepted her defeat and gave up her goals because it was them, but when she saw Kuz running with Alia, she felt betrayed. Miyame soon arrives, and as Alia prepares to leave, she tells Taniyama that even though she also doesn't know why Kuz chose her, she wants to make sure he made the right choice, so she will give it her best till Taniyama can attest to the fact that Kuz made the right choice with her too. After she leaves, Miyame tells Taniyama that Alia is a good girl and says she better apologize to her and Kuz once she has calmed down. Later, Alia sits with Kuz and tells him all that Taniyama said. She then also tells him that she will prove that he made the right choice to run with her. Just then, Alia asks Kuz why he chose to run with her and not Yuki. He replies that he ran with Yuki in the past because he was having a feeling of guilt and was kinda coerced into doing it. But this time, he chose to run with Alia because he wants to, surprising her. He redirects the question to her, and she replies in Russian, but no one knows what the heck that means. As she later leaves, she asks him why he talked about her plot size earlier, and he replies that someone once told him that her cups are not big enough to hold enough milk. She makes a statement in Russian about how true this is, but doesn't know that Kuz understands. A few days later, while Yuki eats dinner with her grandfather, he starts to talk about the congress that occurred between Kuz and Taniyama. He tells Yuki he was expecting much from her since she was a powerful opponent against Yuki in middle school, but he is disappointed that she left in the middle of the debate like an idiot. However, Yuki defends that Taniyama must have had a reason. The old man doesn't buy that crap and says that her actions have resulted in Kuz's campaign gaining legitimacy. And then he tells Yuki that she is not allowed to lose, no matter who she is up against. The grandfather rambles on about how Kuz is a talented Chad born with unmatched privilege, but he threw it all away, and losing to a certified loser like that is absolutely not an option. Later after dinner, Yuki goes to her room, and her mother approaches her moodily and asks if she is still as close as ever to Kuz. She replies yes and asks what the matter is, but her mother refuses to say anything. Upon reaching her room, Yuki requests a teddy bear hug from Ayano, and as she hugs her, she seeks closure in her heavenly pillows. The next day, when Kuz arrives at school, some ugly dudes start to glaze over him and desire to have his meat in their mouths for pulling off a remarkable comeback during the student congress. But he dodges their questions and tells them to ask Alia instead while he plays geisha. The dudes turn to Alia and start to ask her stupid questions, and while she replies to them, they mock Taniyama for running off like that, making Alia pissed, and she leaves the class immediately. Kuz meets her and asks her why she is bothered. He explains that they are not at fault since they fought fairly and squarely, so they shouldn't allow what others say about her to affect them. However, still feeling concerned, Alia tells him they only won because Taniyama opted out. Kuz then asks her what her plan is, even if they are to help her save face, emphasizing that this means their victory at the Congress would go to waste. However, he soon gives in to what she wants and tells her they will sort the mess and head into the closing ceremony with a clear conscience. Alia apologizes for creating more work for him, but he assures her he is doing this with her, lighting up her face. Meanwhile, Kuz suddenly notices that Kenzaki and Shizaki are hiding under a table, and he reasons that this is something straight out of a rom-com, but he chooses to pretend not to know they are there. However, Alia suddenly starts to act sus since they are alone, and fearing what might happen, he immediately thinks of a way to distract her. Hence, he exposes the two cultured morons hiding under the table, making Alia so embarrassed that she runs off immediately. After this, Kuz heads to Miyame's class and calls her aside to speak with her. Miyame teasingly asks if he wants to ask her out, as she doesn't mind, but Kuz tells her he isn't into pretty girls. He tells her to seek out boys she is interested in, but she replies that men are scum because they only want to replicate 50 Shades of Brown with her. However, Kuz tells her he doesn't give an F about her love affairs but will advise her to stop selling herself short. Miyame immediately retorts that this was the same thing Taniyama told her, except that hers came with a bonus slap. She then asks him why he called her here, and he tells her he wants to put a stop to the negative talks about Taniyama. However, she asks him why he came to her, wondering if he realizes that she is the enemy, who even had plans in the audience against Taniyama. Kuz yaps for a while, and then tells her that he proposes they spread a rumor, explaining why Taniyama left that day to make it seem that she didn't run away from a fight. Miyame is surprised and asks if he is sure since it will bring their victory into question, but Kuz tells her they are okay with it. Miyame agrees and leaves, and while Kuz thinks about what he just did, Yuki and Ayano suddenly appear, shocking him. They tell him they were pretending to have a secret meeting, not knowing that an actual secret meeting was taking place. Meanwhile, Alia appears, and upon seeing Kuz with her rivals, she gets pissed, but she pretends she is cool with it, saying there is nothing wrong with 3 childhood friends hanging out in an empty classroom. Miyame returns to her class, and when they ask her why Kuz met her, she says he wanted to know why Taniyama skipped school today. They are surprised and ask if Taniyama is feeling down over her defeat. But Miyame changes the narrative by telling them it's her fault, as Taniyama only left the debate because she was mad at her. They wonder what she means, and she further explains that Taniyama had found out halfway into the student congress that she had plants in the audience. Meanwhile, Kuz is busy pleading his case to the girl, who says she had no problem seeing him with Yuki. He asks if she would study with him in the library after school. As they later study together in the library, Kuz observes she is sitting too close to him and hopes that no one sees them like this, but Yuki and Ayano enter just at that moment, shocking him. They join them in reading and while at it, Alia observes them and asks if they are really just childhood friends because they are giving something more that kind of vibe. At that moment, Masha enters and makes them some tea, which Kuz finds very pleasing to his soul. After that, Masha finds a book on hypnosis and asks Alia to test it on her, but she declines because she thinks it is useless and doesn't work. However, Masha asks Kuz to do it instead, and as soon as he practices a part of the book, she zones out immediately. Moreover, Alia tells her sister to cut the crap, thinking she is only faking it, but she doesn't respond until Kuz deactivates the hypnotic spell by touching her shoulder. Alia still doesn't believe the so Yuki suggests she allow Kuz to practice it on her too, so she can find out if it is just a farce or not. Alia sits immediately, and Kuz begins the hypnotic spell, which knocks both sisters out instantly. Seeing this, Yuki eagerly declares that Kuz has managed to hypnotize 2 hotties, which his ugly face wouldn't have achieved in his lifetime, and then she suggests that he commands them to go unrestrained and strip themselves. Bro wouldn't do this because he is a nice gentleman, but Yuki would because she is a cynical. She instructs the 2 sisters to lose themselves and leave their minds and bodies bare. The 2 girls suddenly get to their feet, and Masha soon begins to pat Kuz and Alia on their heads, leaving Bro wondering what the heck is going on. A few moments later, Kuz realizes things are about to go down as the girls start to unbutton their uniforms. Heat and Yuki immediately try to deactivate the spell but fail, and while they wonder what to do, Chizaki enters. Yuki explains that they tried the hypnosis book but can't seem to snap the girls out of its spell, so Chizaki gets into action and unleashes a hand technique she learned from Sakura to reset them. When Alia and Masha realize what has happened, they scream in embarrassment. Afterward, Chizaki approaches Kuz and prepares to give him a reset too, since his eyes have beheld the biggest taboo in anime history. Some days later, while Kuz studies at home for the exams starting the following day, he finds it hard to concentrate because he awaits the next recap release on Annie Ender. But he immediately dismisses the thought because he knows he won't return to his study if he starts to watch the recap. After a while of trying and still distracted, he finally concludes that he is now cooked, but he reasons that he shouldn't allow his unseriousness to affect Alia's standing in the election. He suddenly receives a call from Alia, and when picking it up, he asks her why she is calling him, to which he replies that she has no specific reason. He playfully asks if she misses him that badly, and he is shocked when she concedes in Russian. However, she reveals that she called him because she knows he is pretty messed up when alone and might be edging to some sus manga instead of studying. Kuz reveals he is more distracted than a kid in a candy store right now, so Alia suggests they make a bet. She asks him what his goal for this exam is, and he tells her that he wants to be placed among the top 30 in the results. So she tells him that if he achieves it, she will do anything he tells her to besides plot development. But if he fails, he will have to do anything she requests. The cultured idiot immediately agrees because he is down for anything she wants, even if it is clapping. Meanwhile, Alia replies calmly, making Kuz commend that she has grown up and is making Big Bro want to cry. She immediately disagrees, saying he is not her Big Bro because they are age mates. Kuz then mentions that her birthday is November 7th, and he has celebrated his birthday since April. She wonders how he knows her birthday, and he tells her she must have mentioned it when she was once introducing herself. However, he ends the call when he realizes he is beginning to say more than necessary. Meanwhile, the reason Alia called was because she was scared while she was seeing a horror movie and needed someone to talk to. However, she feels terrible that she never knew when Kuz celebrated his birthday, even though he tells her they are friends. 5 days later at school, Kuz tells Alia that they should walk home together as he would like to discuss what they will do at the closing ceremony. So after school, while they walk home, he wonders why she hasn't flirted with him even once since the phone call that night. He tells her he noticed she has changed since the exam period started, surprising her that he noticed despite how much she tried to hide it, and he tells her he is a Sherlock Holmes ripoff. She asks him if he really cares about her that much, and he replies yes since she is his partner. Hearing this, she suddenly asks why he didn't invite her to his birthday party, surprising him as he wonders which birthday she is talking about. He tells her he didn't throw any parties and hasn't done that since he was in elementary school. He is just a broke dude still trying to fulfill the American dream. However, she doesn't believe all the crap he just said. Realizing that it's because it is common for Russians to throw a big party for birthdays even if they are living miserable lives, unlike the Japanese who don't give a shit about how old they have become. Kuz feels like Craig Ferguson for a moment and asks her if she desired to celebrate his birthday with him that badly, to which she replies that in Russia, leaving someone out of one's birthday sends a clear message that you are done with playing nice with them from that year forward. Hearing this, he decides to celebrate it with her, even though it has passed, and by the weekend, they meet up for a little hangout. As he walks to the cafe with her, he decides to use a cheesy pickup line he learned on Reddit on her, saying he feels heat because she looks so hot, and as they continue, Kuz notices everyone staring at Alia. He tells her about it, but she tells him to ignore it because it's the price she pays for being so beautiful. They soon reach the cafe, and Kuz begins to explain all she needs to know about the closing ceremony, and after yapping for a while, the waiter brings their order. As they eat with Alia swallowing the large meat whole, she asks if he is the one who started the rumor about Miyame, but he says she started it by herself. Alia expresses that even though it stopped the negative comments about Taniyama, it unfortunately also made their victory in the Congress void. Bro apologizes that it happened that way, but Alia tells him he doesn't have to since she was pretty much useless in the whole conversation and made no noteworthy contribution. A few moments later, she brings out the gift she got for him for his birthday, and upon opening the box, Kuz discovers it's a cup, but he tells her he would have loved to have her eat cups as his birthday present. The next day in the student council room, while Masha prepares some tea for them, Kuz asks Kenzaki for an update on the summer uniforms, and he tells him that although this is confidential information, the school is set to release the new uniforms after the summer break, for which there will be a surprise announcement at the closing ceremony. Yuki appreciates Kenzaki's effort in getting the proposal approved, but he tells her it's all thanks to Chisaki, who played the major. Chisaki tries to be meek too by pushing it back to him, leading to the two idiots acting all lovey-dovey and wasting screen time. Masha serves the tea, and while at it, Kuz notices she is still embarrassed about the hypnosis incident, so later, as they clean up in the kitchen, he asks her about it. She tells him she is not embarrassed, but asks him what exactly happened that day. Kuz explains that she only patted his and Alia's heads and nothing else, relieving her. She then asks if he saw her plot in 360p, but he tells her no. He saw it in 4K. He apologizes that it was unavoidable, but Masha perceives that Bro is a man of culture and is not really as sorry as he claims, so she pulls his cheek, telling him not to be naughty. However, Dude hopes he could clap her cheeks instead. Masha soon takes her leave when she receives a call from her mom, leaving Q's to finish cleaning. Later, when he returns to the student council room, he finds only Yuki left there, and she grabs him as he attempts to leave, saying she would have loved it if they were in Alabama, because she would like to do messy things with him. But Q's isn't buying her crap. She tells him he is being so cold and that it has been a while since they had the brother and a hot stepsister scenario. Afterward, she lies down on the table and tells him to get on top of her, so Dude gets into his plot master mode. After a quick session, he receives a call, and even though she wouldn't let him go, he steps out to meet his grandpa, dressed like Lex Luthor. Later, while they sit to talk, Elia and her mom head out of a class, and upon seeing her, Kuz's grandpa goes all nuts because he has a thing for Russians. Meanwhile, Alia's mom, noticing Kuz, blushes as she tells him that Alia talks so much about him, making him embarrassed. However, Bro soon notices that his Gramps is already proposing on his behalf, making him even more embarrassed. Later, while he and his Gramps head, they suddenly meet a woman who calls Kuz's Gramps father-in-law, as Kuz's countenance changes. 3 days later, Kuz wakes up from a dream about when he was very young that his mom seemed not to be satisfied, no matter how much he tried to please her. He realizes he has caught a cold, so he doesn't go to school that day. Alia soon appears at his home, and he is shocked to see her, wondering if Yuki told her about it. Alia replies that she asked her to bring him some medicine, but he cusses at Yuki in his mind for not informing him about this. She asks him if she can come in, and he tells her not to worry since she only came to give him medicine. However, she tells him that Yuki also asked her to nurse him, making him think that his sister has to be the most annoying being on earth. On getting in, she asks if he would like to eat borscht or the regular porridge, making him wonder why she is so specific on what to make for him. She tells him that the borscht is perfect for his sickness, but it would take about 4 hours to prepare, so he opts for the second option instead because he can't wait that long before he eats. In the kitchen, Alia starts to search Google for what to do since the only thing she knows how to cook is lies, and while at it, she sees the mug she gave him, making her excited that he is actually using it. She soon returns to Q's with the food, and the cultured idiot comments on how hot she looks in her apron. While he eats the meal, Alia asks about his parents, and he replies that his father is not around and his mother is no more, making her speechless. After he finishes the meal, she asks about his medicine, and he tells her he has used it. He also tells her he will be going to sleep, so she should feel free to leave whenever she is done. But Alia replies that she will be studying in the living room. Q's wakes up a couple of hours later, and when he thinks that she would have left, he shockingly finds Ayano and Alia doing the English or Spanish challenge. They ask if he is feeling better, and Ayano walks over to his arms, telling him he can rest his head on her soft pillows. But Q's fears being cancelled and tells her she has to be careful before everyone thinks he is bending his maid. Alia tells the naughty girl to leave him, but she refuses, saying this is part of her duties as a maid. However, Alia points out that she is Yuki's maid, but Ayano defends that Yuki sent her to take care of him. She then tells Alia to get going as she will take care of him from here. She also reminds Alia about what she has to do the next day. Q's wonders what this is, but Alia doesn't tell him and takes her leave immediately. Afterward, Ayano serves Q's the borscht, which Alia eventually prepared, and after eating, she gives him his medicine. Q's then goes back to bed to sleep, but Ayano asks him if he doesn't want to bathe as she would love to wipe him down there. But Pro declines before she puts him in trouble. She persists, but he tells her to go the heck home. The next morning, he wakes up late, and a few moments later, Ayano serves him breakfast. After eating, Ayano gives him his medicine, and he suddenly suspects that something is off about it. He tells Ayano to bring the medicine package, only for him to discover that he has been taking sleeping drugs. He asks her why she didn't tell him even though she knew what he was taking was wrong, and Ayano apologizes for her negligence. He asks if it was Yuki who told Alia to get this, and then decides that he is going to school. However, Ayano tries to talk him out of it, but he insists, and then she tells him that it is already too late anyway. He is surprised and runs off to school to meet Alia, feeling like hanging himself on a tree for not predicting that Yuki will make such a move. On meeting Alia, she begins to apologize for messing up and putting all of his help and efforts to waste. He asks her what happened, and she begins to narrate the event to him. It happened on the morning of the previous day when Yuki asked to talk to Alia. She informed her about Kuz's cold and said she would have gone to take care of him, but she had something to do, so Alia offered to go instead. After giving Olia the drug to get him in his address, she added that she had something else to discuss with her. Yuki then asked Alia if she would mind making a guest appearance on the lunchtime PA broadcast the following day. She tried persuading that it was a good opportunity to drive home her victory in the debate, but Alia replied that she had no intention of bringing the topic back up. Yuki began a clash of plots battle, while begging her to appear on the broadcast anyway, so Alia agreed. However, Yuki suddenly switched and started saying things to trigger her, saying she was going to use Kuz's sickness as an opportunity to crash her stock as much as possible while he was away. Alia became provoked and took up the challenge to show her what she's got, even though she's got nothing except her stupidity. However, the next day during the broadcast, Yuki suddenly became meek and apologized for the attitude she pulled up with the day before. She made what seemed like a genuine apology, totally causing Alia to drop her guard. Yuki then pulled the emotional card of the story of her brother, who was more talented and smarter than she was and wanted to become the president, but couldn't because he died. Now she desires to continue what he started, which is why she has to become the president. Alia became sympathetic, and Yuki suddenly asked why she also wanted to become the president. However, Alia became short of words because her desire to become the president seemed like a child's fantasy. Kuz realizes the strategy Yuki used there, but he snaps Alia out of her negative emotions, saying she is playing into Yuki's hands just as she wants. He explains that Yuki's goal was not to take the lead using the broadcast, as there weren't many students available during the broadcast, but she was rather only laying the groundwork for the closing ceremony, to throw her off her game. Alia, realizing Yuki's plan and how she is a fool, heaves a sigh of relief, but she suddenly sees Kuz giving an eerie smile, prompting her to ask what he is doing. He tells her he is thinking about how good Yuki got them, and adds that he doesn't know why this is giving him goosebumps, surprising her. Meanwhile, Alia expresses that he looks so mogged with that face in Russian. A few moments later, she tells Kuz how her reason for running in the election is bullcrap compared to Yuki's own. But Kuz tells her to stop giving a damn about what her opponent's reasons are, and he tells her that she is big, bold, and beautiful. He tells her more motivational quotes, and she laughs in mischief, mocking him that he looks like a simp confessing his feelings to a girl who gives no shit about him. He becomes embarrassed, but she thanks him for helping her regain her confidence. She agrees that she ought not to be comparing herself to Yuki, even if she is carrying on her dead brother's spirit. Hearing this, Kuz becomes shocked that his sister made Alia think he is dead, and as he tries to explain himself, Miname and Taniyama suddenly enter the class. Taniyama apologizes for causing them trouble and asks for their forgiveness, but Kuz tells them it's left for Alia to decide. Taniyama then plans to go announce her defeat by herself, but Kuz tells her that if she wants to repay Alia's goodwill, she should do it another way instead of going to make a mess of herself. She asks for his suggestion, and after revealing it, Taniyama and Miyame agree to join them in completely destroying Yuki in the election. What do they plan to do? Comment Rizzes if you want the next part, and if you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video over here.